What is going on, y'all? Welcome back to the Week 9 edition of Addy's Action, where I'm going to be breaking down a few of my favorite low-owned plays on DraftKings.com for this NFL Week 9 main slate. Like I usually say in these videos, these are tournament plays. I do anticipate these guys coming in at fairly low ownership relative to the field. But as I also mention in every video, I do think these plays are going to have a solid amount of cash game playability. One of these plays, maybe not so much. We'll get into it. I'll talk more about it. But for majority of these guys that I talk about in this video, and majority of the guys that I sort of go on a tangent and talk about in this video as well, they're all going to have some sort of cash game playability. I usually, I talk about 4, 5, maybe 6 guys in these videos, and 1, 2, maybe 3 of them make it into my lineup. I run one lineup on DraftKings every NFL main slate, and some of these plays, they come in at low ownership, but I feel like they warrant cash game playability as well. So we'll get into that. Before we do, though, just a couple procedural things. First off, if y'all want to follow me on Twitter, y'all can do so right here. It's at ReallyAddy on Twitter. You can keep up with my Twitter takes, opinions on things, basketball, football, hockey takes, all that good stuff. You guys know what's up with Twitter. And also, if you want to get entered into winning a free NFL or NBA season pass, just the same giveaway that we run every single week. All you got to do is leave a like, leave a comment, and make sure you're subscribed to this channel in order to win. We announce that winner every Wednesday night on our Thursday Night Football Showdown video. We already announced last week's winner. He already messaged us. He's already with us. So if y'all do want to check it out, go to locksdfs.com. You can get yourself a pass over there. NFL, NBA, both seasons in full swing. Both seasons are going great. Both communities are being built over here at locksdfs.com, and it's a lot of fun. So if you want to do that, go ahead and check it out. And if you want to be entered into winning a free season pass, just leave a like, leave a comment, make sure you're subscribed. All very simple things. So with that being said, let's jump into the lineup review for last week. So like I mentioned, a lot of the plays that I talk about in this video are going to crack the lineup. I talked about Daniel Jones. I talked about that Golden State-Detroit game at length, or Golden State. I'm in basketball mode, excuse me. I talked about that. Why did I say Golden State, honestly? But I talked about that New York Giants-Detroit game at length, how I liked that game to shoot out. I really liked betting the over in that game. I liked wide receivers on both sides. I liked pretty much every weapon in that game. And that's reflected in my lineup. Daniel Jones was my Addy's Action quarterback, and he ended up outscoring Matt Stafford. I ended up coming on Matt Stafford just because I thought, he was a bit safer than Daniel Jones, even though I wish I rode that Daniel Jones take. I went with Marvin Jones to pair him with. I knew Kenny Golladay was going to come in, 5 times the ownership of Marvin Jones. And while I did like Kenny Golladay more, I just thought for the leverage, Marvin Jones made some sense, especially because I thought he'd be matched up primarily against DeAndre Baker as opposed to Janoris Jenkins. But obviously that didn't really work out for me with Kenny Golladay just going stupid and Marvin Jones not really doing too much. But we tried to run it back with Evan Ingram. That didn't go too poorly. It went pretty well. And then the running back play, obviously Tevin Coleman. He was the cover boy. I mean, I mentioned it in the video how surprised I was that no one was really talking about him, and it's really reflected in the ownership. This is in the 333 Wildcat, so a lot of sharp players in here, a lot of sharp entries, and he still came in at 2% owned as the lead back. Obviously in a running back by committee, but lead back versus a run funnel defense, and they're like an offense that wants to run the ball 60+% of the time. It was sort of right there, but definitely it's worth noting I did run in probably the top 5%, maybe top 3% outcome here. I mean, he got 13 touches. Obviously the game was out of reach, otherwise he probably would have pushed 20. 13 touches, but he averaged like 3 fantasy points per touch. That's not always going to happen, but the opportunity was there, and there was a major touchdown regression coming his way with all the red zone carries he was seeing. So I'm really happy he did get there. Helped cash me in this tournament. Helped me sweep my cash game, sweep my head-to-heads. It was a lot of fun. So with that being said, let's see if we can get another Tevin Coleman played this week on this Week 9 main slate. So let's start at quarterback. Usually how I start these videos is I go over the guys who I think are going to be, or not who I think, I just read projections, who people think, the industry thinks is going to be the chalkiest quarterback. So let's just start reading it from the top. We got Russell Wilson, home versus Tampa Bay. Makes a lot of sense there. Derek Carr, home versus Detroit. Makes a lot of sense there. Jameis Winston, Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Kirk Cousins, Matt Moore. And then we got my quarterback, and that is going to be Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers is 5.1K on DraftKings. Um, don't think I've ever seen him priced this low. And I mean, it seems fairly straightforward to me. And I feel like his ownership is going to end up rising come Sunday because of the playability of his pass game weapons. I mean, both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are in pretty smash spots here versus Green Bay. This is a game that I do think can shoot out despite it probably playing at a fairly slow pace. I do think Green Bay is going to put up some points on this Chargers defense that just isn't that good. They're not generating much pressure. Aaron Rodgers has been, a surgeon the past few weeks, and he's probably going to get Devontae Adams back. So I think Green Bay puts up points, and I think Phillip Rivers is going to have to hang with them. Um, so let's go. I mean, there's so many pieces. I have my notes pulled up here. I got about 4 or 5 notes on why I like Phillip Rivers. First off, let's talk about this Green Bay pass rush. This Green Bay pass rush has slowly declined as the year has gone on. I don't know if you guys remember earlier, up through like week 5, I believe. This Green Bay pass rush was a top 5 pass rush in football. They had an adjusted sack rate up above like 8.5%. Since they've just slowly been declining, they've been generating very, very little pressure in the recent weeks. They're 18th in sack rate, 6.8%, 11th in adjusted sack rate at 7.9%. They are 18th in quarterback hit rate at 14.9%. And they've been giving up some pretty big weeks to quarterbacks in the past few weeks. This Chargers offensive line, while it is shaky, they did get back their best offensive lineman, their left tackle Russell Okung last week. He looked good, and just his addition helped keep Phillip Rivers upright versus Chicago. We know how vaunted that Chicago pass rush is. Phillip Rivers only got sacked once in that game, and he did drop back quite a few times. So definitely like him as far as avoiding pressure. And let's talk about his wide receivers matchup. So Keenan Allen practiced in full this week. I do have some concerns that he may not be fully healthy, but we kind of have to just take with what we got. And he did, he got 10 targets on 25 routes last week. Played limited snaps, but he came out of it looking pretty healthy. He looked like, just based on the eye test, he looked fine. And he practiced in full from the jump this week. So I tend to believe he's fine. And he's going to be running majority of his routes from the slot, where Green Bay has totally been torched. They've given up over 8 yards per attempt and 5 touchdowns in the slot. And then we got Mike Williams, who's going to be primarily covered by Kevin King on the outside. Kevin King, he is a pretty big cornerback, which is why I think they're going to shadow Mike Williams with him. But Mike Williams is just going to have a massive week one of these weeks. This guy has been popping in all sorts of air yards models. He's been this guy's like, he's in the upper echelon of air yards in the league. He's one of 3 wide receivers with over 50 targets and no touchdowns. So he's got major touchdown regression coming, major yardage regression coming. And one of these weeks, it's all going to come to fruition. And at home with the new offensive coordinator, I think this definitely could be the week. And that's another thing I want to talk about, this offensive coordinator situation. So they did fire Ken Wisenhunt, who was just insistent on running the ball with Melvin Gordon. And just kind of phased out Austin Eckler, despite them having one of the best offenses in the league when Austin Eckler was the lead back prior to Melvin Gordon coming back from his holdout. I think my video froze for some reason, but okay, there we go. We're back. But now they've upgraded I'm assuming it's an upgrade, but they've switched out their offensive coordinator to their quarterbacks coach, which I think is an important note. It is their quarterbacks coach, Shane Steichen. I do think he's going to try and get the ball back in Phillip Rivers' hands. He is their best offensive weapon in relation to, as opposed to, I should say, running it with Melvin Gordon. He's 34 years old. Young guys tend to be a bit more creative, i.e. Sean McVay, tend to be a bit more forward-thinking with the way the league is moving as far as passing the ball at a higher rate. So I think this is a game where Phillip Rivers drops back quite a few times. I think he's going to be protected, and I like the matchup for all his weapons from Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Hunter Henry, Austin Eckler. Even Melvin Gordon has a good matchup. This is, the 31st ranked run defense. So I don't think they're going to have any trouble moving the ball, which definitely increases Phillip Rivers' touchdown equity, especially in the red zone. So big fan of Phillip Rivers here, and I think double stacking him with with both his wide receivers might be one of my favorite GPP plays. You know, it's thin for cash to go 1 QB, 2 wide receivers, but you could definitely correlate him with a wide receiver like Keenan Allen or Mike Williams. And for tournaments, you could just correlate him with both. I mean, they come in at like 11,000 combined. You can full stack them for like 16K. That leaves you a ton of salary to get a bunch of other awesome plays in your lineup as well. And let's talk about some of them in the running back spot. So running back is the position I told you guys. This play is super, super thin, and it's really just for tournaments. But I'll get into why that is. So let's go over the high-owned running backs right now. We got Jalen Samuels coming in as massive chalk. He's just underpriced versus Indianapolis. He's going to be the lead dog. No qualms there. C-Mac after that. Dalvin Cook after that. Both those guys don't need any explaining. Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs, Nick Chubb, Le'Veon Bell, and then my guy. So not too low. And that's kind of like what I was going with in this week. This play is very, very thin. And I'm about to tell you guys who it is. But the fact that he's, like the 6th highest owned running back, it's a weird week. I'll talk a little bit more about that and how much sharper this DFS field has gotten when I get into like tight end and wide receiver, honestly. But the running back is going to be Derrick Henry. So this, obviously, it's a matchup play. I mean, we targeted Tevin Coleman in this matchup versus Carolina just last week, and we saw how well that worked. This Panthers run defense is just a total run funnel with James Bradbury and forgetting his name, Dante Jackson. They're two very underrated cornerbacks. They've just been super strong against the pass, especially with their lethal pass rush. They have the 2nd highest adjusted sack rate in football. And this Tennessee offensive line is, I think, actually the worst offensive line in football. The Jets might have overtaken them. Nope. It's still they're tied. Okay. They're both tied. They're both hot garbage. They both have an adjusted sack rate of 12.6%. So this is not a matchup where if Tennessee's smart, they're not going to have Ryan Tannehill drop back. If I was offensive coordinator, I would try to have him drop back less than 20 times. It's just an awful, awful matchup for him. But it's a really good matchup for the running back. I mean, Carolina has given up just under 5 yards per carry this entire season. They've given up 12 touchdowns to the position, which is, top 5 in the league. And this is all without Kawan Short, who is their best run stopper. He's been out majority of the year with a torn rotator cuff. And obviously he's still not going to be back. So this really plays right into Derrick Henry's hands. But the matchup it's fairly obvious. It's a good running matchup. But the real reason I like Derrick Henry in tournaments is the leverage. I mean, Christian McCaffrey, I've read. Christian McCaffrey's what? 2nd highest on running back. He's going to come in like somewhere around 40+%. There's a good chance he comes in like 40% in tournaments, potentially even higher in cash games. I'm interested to see where people go between C-Mac and Dalvin Cook, but he's going to be one of the chalkier running backs on the slate. And one of the most direct paths to Christian McCaffrey failing to achieve value is if the Titans just hold on to the ball. And if they hold on to the ball and keep Christian McCaffrey on the field, it means that one guy is having a good game, and that's Derrick Henry, because they're going to move the chains with him. They're going to play really, really slow like the Titans want to do, and they're going to try and keep this Carolina offense off the field at home. Carolina's at home. So Tennessee's going to do everything they can to run the ball and establish the run in this matchup. I think they're going to be very persistent with it. Derrick Henry's 4th in the league in carries. He's gotten over 16 touches every single week. Dion Lewis is essentially like completely out of the game plan. He's gotten like less than 4 touches. No, he's only reached 5 touches once since week 1. So he's essentially a 3-down back despite not having pass game upside. He has caught a ball in every single game, so he does have some sort of receiving upside. And it's just an awesome, awesome leverage play. Because if you're fading McCaffrey and he's highly owned and you have a low-owned Derrick Henry who, let's just say, somehow matches Christian McCaffrey, let alone exceeds his score, if he has like a multiple touchdown game, I mean, you're shipping something. So I really love Derrick Henry for the leverage here. Don't think he's that playable in cash because of the avenues to failure for this Tennessee offense. But in GPPs, I mean, I love it. I really love it. So let's move on to wide receiver with that being said. So wide receiver, this is another like way that I'm just like the DFS field has gotten sharp over the past year or maybe year and a half, 2 years. It's just like some of these guys I just would not expect to generate the ownership they're generating. But like this wide receiver I'm going to talk about, I was so excited to talk about him all week. I thought he was going to come in like less than 5% owned, maybe less than 10% owned. And then I look at, ownerships across like 3 or 4 sites, and he's like the 7th highest owned wide receiver. I don't think it'll be that high, so I'm going to talk about him anyway. But let's go over the highest owned guys right now. We got both the Tampa Bay guys, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, followed by Tyler Lockett in the same game. Then Keenan Allen, Jarvis Landry, which is another that's a sharp play for people who that's a sharp play for a lot of guys, and I just don't feel like it's that obvious, but it is right there. Stephon Diggs, and then my guy, same game, Tyree Kill, 7.4K. I really did not think Tyree Kill was going to generate anything close to that ownership, and here's why. I thought people are going to try and force in at least one high-priced running back, and then I think when they come over to wide receiver, they're going to see guys like Kenny Golladay, Tyler Lockett, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. Those are, 4 of the highest-owned wide receivers on this slate. And I just think they're going to avoid Tyreek Hill thinking, oh, Minnesota's got a pretty tough thinking this. It's not true, but they're going to think, Minnesota's got a tough pass defense. Matt Moore's at quarterback. That kind of limits Tyreek Hill's upside. But, here he is, the 7th highest owned wide receiver come 1 a.m. on Saturday. But I don't think it's going to hold like that. I don't think that many people are going to go towards Tyreek Hill. I think that number is going to come down fairly significantly come Sunday morning. And I'm really interested in Tyreek Hill in this spot. Let's just talk about matchup first off. Well, let's talk about pace first off. This Kansas City offense runs at the 3rd highest situation neutral pace of play. This Minnesota offense runs at the 13th highest situation neutral pace of play. Both these teams do like to pass the ball. We saw this Minnesota offense be very run-heavy to start the year and has since sort of transitioned to more of a pass-heavy offense. Obviously, they're going to have a lot of success moving the ball versus this Kansas City defense. Even in Arrowhead, Dalvin Cook should have a big game. Both these wide receivers have plus draws. So I think Minnesota is going to put up points and going to force Kansas City to throw the ball. And let's talk about this secondary. This secondary has been sneaky awful. Xavier Rhodes, there's a good chance Tyreek Hill sees Xavier Rhodes for the majority of this game. Xavier Rhodes is slow, he's old, and he's Pro Football Focus number 117 ranked cornerback out of 127 qualified cornerbacks. He's 10th worst. And he's being matched up with a guy who runs a 4.3, 4.40. It's Tyree Kill. Tyree Kill, people are going to think, oh, Matt Moore lowers his upside. And yeah, he definitely does. We saw Matt Moore underthrow Tyree Kill by 3 or 4 yards, which I believe last game, which typically if Pat Mahomes is there, Tyree Kill probably houses that catch as opposed to, incomplete pass. But I still think he only lowers his upside by maybe 5 to 10% in most range of outcomes. So I think he makes a ton of sense here. This Vikings defense has allowed the most receptions to wide receivers. It's over like 114. They're one of only 8 defenses that have allowed double-digit touchdowns to wide receivers. That plays right into Tyreek Hill's hands. And when Alex Smith was the quarterback for this Kansas City team, Tyreek Hill was a wide receiver 4 that season. Matt Moore is no different than Tyree Smith in my eyes. We saw him play well versus the Packers secondary at home last week, and I think this matchup is similar, if not better, versus this Minnesota secondary. And I think Tyreek Hill breaks a big one here, and I think you could even pair him with Matt Moore if you wanted to at 4.8K. I think Matt Moore gets there. I believe in Andy Reid. He's a quarterback whisperer. He's an offensive guru. And I just believe in that, and I think that stack is very viable. But Tyreek Hill just makes so much sense to me in this spot, and I'll be excited to go here, especially if I see his ownership decrease a bit come Sunday morning. So I think that should do it for wide receiver. Nobody else I really wanted to talk about too much. So let's move on to tight end. Tight end though is funny. It's another case of me just thinking that guy would be low owned, and he's just not gonna be. The tight end I wanted to talk about coming into this week is Zach Ertz. I was really excited to, show you guys these box scores, 8.4, 5.8, and 4 fantasy points, and just talk about how he's in a total smash spot versus Chicago and how I'm going to try and get him in like all my lineups. But I go ahead and look at ownership, and Tyree and Zach Ertz is like, he's like the highest owned tight end on the slate. So I don't know if that'll stay true because other guys are in really good spots like Darren Waller, even Travis Kelce, and some of these cheap tight ends. But for the sake of what we got to work with, I'm not going to talk about Zach Ertz, although I love him. Let's talk about high-owned tight ends. So we got Zach Ertz first, Darren Waller second, followed by Jonnu Smith, Greg Olsen. It's so thin. Tight end is so thin every week. Travis Kelce, Dallas Goedert, and then we got my boy Jack Doyle here at 3K. He's going to be the guy that I'm going to be most interested in at tight end if I do want to pay down. This could be a week where you might have to pay down at tight end. Zach Ertz isn't that much more expensive. I mean, he's 1.7K more, but relative to, he started the season as a 6.1K wide receiver. So relative to where he started, he's not that expensive. But Jack Doyle as well is in a very, very good spot versus this Pittsburgh pass defense. Their cornerbacks have been shut down recently, especially Joe Hayden. But the big note here is more so on the Indianapolis side of the ball, where T.Y. Hilton is going to be missing from this game. Obviously, a huge blow to this pass game in general, their ability to move the ball and Jacoby Brissett's upside. But what I do think it'll render is quite a few more two tight end sets. We've already seen Jack Doyle sort of take over as the primary wide receiver snap count-wise. I mean, he's sort of been, hovering around the 70% range, but in recent weeks, 76%, 72%. I think we're going to see a lot of two tight end sets. Jack Doyle's targets have been there 8, 3, 5, and 5. That is more than playable at 3K. He's got pretty massive touchdown equity in the red zone. We know he's one of Jacoby Brissett. We know how much Jacoby Brissett likes to target his tight ends in the red zone. And Jack Doyle is obviously a tight end that he likes to target in the red zone. So I think him coming in at 5% owned, he's probably going to be my favorite of these cheap tight ends. I think you can make a case for a guy like Dallas Goedert. Even you can even make a case for a guy like Noah Fant. I don't know much about this Allen kid. I don't even know his first name. But I just know, quarterbacks who are sort of like making their first start might be a little bit overwhelmed. They tend to rely on their tight end more than usual. And Noah Fant saw a pretty massive snap share and route run increase in the first game after Emmanuel Sanders got traded to the 49ers. So, I think he's in play, but I think my favorite cheap tight end is going to be Jack Doyle here at 3K. So, yeah, I think that kind of wraps it up. Sorry I got this video up so late for you guys. I was, gambling all day. Saturdays are a pretty crazy day for gambling with hockey. This is your early hockey slate, a basketball slate, a main hockey slate, and I love playing the late slates as well. So it was a pretty big day for gambling. A ton of fun. Looking forward to tomorrow. It's typically more of the same. And then I was watching the Canelo fight, which was, pretty freaking good. So I was watching that. And so my bad for getting this video up so late. I have no idea when it's going to go up because my Wi-Fi is slow. Probably like 3 in the morning, Mountain Time, so 5 in the morning. But as long as you guys see it before kickoff, that's all that matters. So I appreciate you guys checking this out every single week. It really means a lot to see you guys coming back here and enjoying these takes. I love when you guys are tweeting at me when these guys do well. It just means so much to see that sort of interaction. It's the whole reason I even do these videos. So I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for tuning in. Hope y'all run well this week. No injuries. Let's get some run goods. Someone ship something and send me a screenshot. And I'll see y'all for week 10 of Addy's Action. Peace.